Lists are the first of 4 data structures that we're going to talk about in the series. In the future videos, we will see tuples, dictionaries, and sets. The difference between a data structure to a single piece of data is the fact that a structure can hold inside of it multiple instances of data at the same time. Let me show you what I mean by that with an example. In order to create a list, you need to define its beginning and end with square brackets. And you want to separate each value you want to store it inside this list in comma separated values. Now a list doesn't have to hold a single data type in it. As you can see in this example, I have different types. On index 0 I have an integer, index 1 I have number 4, which is also an integer, then a boolean, a string, a float, and lastly another string. A list can also hold other lists inside of it. So for example, we'll have the list 2 holding other 3 lists inside of it. And you have to be careful to separate everything in commas. So including the lists inside being separated, each of them by by commas themselves. Just to illustrate now how data structures like this might be of use, imagine for a second that you're creating a stock market app and you want to show the user all stocks that they own. One way would be to store all the stocks in a list like this and then display them at a user's page. So for example, if each user were to have a login number, we could create a list like so. Now let's go over some actions that you can perform in your lists. Since we will see multiple data structures in the future videos, you may also want to know that the type function that we used on previous videos to check the data type of a variable can also be used on data structures. So first, let me print the data type of list1, just to reinforce that we can use this function. And as you can see here, we have printed out the class of our list1. To add an item to the end of the list, you can use the append function. And then inside this function, you write whatever it is you want to add to the end of the list. And now when I print this updated list1, you can see now that the integer 5 is included. To add an item to a particular position on your list, you will use the insert function. So let me remove these 2 lines. List1 dot insert, sorry, not function, the insert method. And then the insert method requires you to pass 2 things inside of it. You need to include in it what you want to add into the list and in what position. First, it asks for the index where you want to include your data. So let me include in index 2, so between the number 4 and the boolean true, let me include the word home. And when I print now the list again, you can see here that the word home is included inside the index number 2. Similarly, to remove an item from the end of the list, you're going to use the pop function. Oh, sorry, I missed the number 1 here. And now as you can see, the string car is no longer present in our list. Now to illustrate the next method, let me create a list with numbers only. You may use the sort function to organize the list into ascending order, like so. List1.sort. And now when I print list1, you can see that all the values are organized in ascending order. Now let me explain something really quickly. Some functions have optional parameters, like the print function that we've been using so far. Now we've only been adding to the print function whatever we want to be printed out in the terminal. However, there are optional parameters but we have been choosing to leave them out of it. These extra parameters help configure how we want the particular function to execute. In this case, how the printing out would go on. The sort function has an extra parameter that you can add here, and once you set it to true, what it does is it sorts the list out in reversing order. The parameter I'm talking about is the reverse parameter, and the way to set it to true is like so. And as you can see now, when we run the code, the updated list is in reversed sorted order. Another useful function is when you want to obtain the amount of items in a list, you can use the len function. And with this len function, you're gonna get the amount of data points inside a particular list. As you can see, there are 7 items inside the list, and we get a returned value of 7. The index method can be used when you want to locate the first instance of a data point. So let me just quickly change this list to add a few numbers. John, Maria, Michael, John, and Anna. Let me just put it double quotes for the sake of continuity. Now with the index function, as I mentioned, you want to obtain the first instance of John. Let's see. We know that John is going on twice in our list, and what this index function is going to give is the first instance, or rather the index number of the first instance. Now let me just print this out so that we are able to see the result. Again, I seem to have forgotten the number 1 in our list name. Then now you can see it's printed out the index of the first instance of the name John, which is index 0. Also, you can use the count method to print out how many times a particular data point goes on inside our list. As you can see, John is going on twice in our list. And lastly, the reverse method will give you the same list, but reversed. And as you can see here now, Anna, which was the last string in our list, is the first, John is the second, and so on. Just gives us back the reversed list. Just a quick note, don't confuse the reverse method with the reverse parameter that we saw earlier inside of the sort method. The reverse method will give you the same list, just reversed order, and the reverse parameter inside the sort method is used when you want to organize your list and then reverse the order in descending order. Now let's see what happens when you use math operators on a list. Let me bring back the numeric example to illustrate this point. When I try to perform a arithmetic operation with a list, let's see what goes on. You can see here that if I multiply a list by 2, the list is going to be doubled from now on, and not necessarily that each data entry inside this list is going to be times 2. Another way to append elements to a list is by using the following notation. So you want to add a small sublist to your list, and bear in mind that you have to delimit them by square brackets. And now when I print my new list, you can see that the sublist 456 is now included in list 1. Also, you can take a subset of a list using colon inside square brackets, much like strings. If you want to print out, let's say, a subsection from number 4 to number 84, you would start at index 0, use colon, and then we want to retrieve index 1 and 2. So you would put an index here, on index 3 here, because the last index inside these square brackets is not included in the result. And as you can see, we get the first 3 indexes, first 3 data points inside our list. much like strings, they're very similar in this way. Now we're going to do 3 quick exercises. I'm going to outline the problem and give you a couple of seconds to figure out. So when I tell you, please pause the video and try to complete these exercises. The first one being, in a list that has 5 random numbers, try to print the largest number inside that list. The numbers of that list are 4, 5, 7, 2, and 3. Given this list, try to find the biggest number, try to print it. So you know it's the value 7, but how can you use the functions and methods that we learned today to return and print this number? Pause the video now and I'll give you a couple seconds to try it out. Okay, so if you're able to do it, congratulations. My solution, and bearing in mind that there could be multiple of them, the way that I did it is by first sorting the list, meaning that now this is going to be organized in ascending order, and I want to return the last value on the last index because that's going to be the largest number. The way to do that is, well, I know that this list has 5 elements, so I can retrieve the item in index 4, which is going to be this index, but since it's going to be ordered, you can see that we're going to have, oh, sorry, list 1, Jesus. I'm having some trouble remembering the list's name, but as you can see here, 7 is the largest number. Another way to do this is if you didn't know how many characters were inside your list, because sometimes it's going to have hundreds and hundreds of data points, you could simply use the index of -1. -1 is the last index in your list, -2 is the second last, and so on and so forth. And if you run the code, you get the same result. Okay, now for the second exercise. So create a list spelling out your name and print the count of each vowel. So let me show you an example. My name is Augusto, and what I want to be printed out is a string saying my name has this many letters A, and then repeat this 5 other times for E-I-O-U, or rather repeat 4 more times, including this one. It's going to be 5. So pause the video now, give it a try, and I'll show you the solution in a bit. Okay, so the solution that I came up with is by creating one variable for each count, and then I want to use the count function to find all the instances of these 5 vowels. E, I, O, and U, and don't forget to change the variable names. Pardon me. A, E, I, O, U. Now I should have here the count of all of these variables. Now I just need to print or to write the formatted string to print out the results that I want. So just a reminder, this is an F string, it's a formatted string, and it allows me to pass in variables and operations inside the curly braces, curly brackets. Now let me just copy and paste this. And just on a sidebar, copying and pasting is usually not a good practice, just because you run the risk of making mistakes without noticing, and then debugging is going to be a pain in the butt. So let me just double check, count A, E, I, O, U, A, E, I, O, U, and then when I print this, as you can see, I have 1 letter A in my name, 1 letter O, 2 letters U, Augusto. And I hope you were able to do it. And now let's head off to the last one. Okay, add the numbers 3 and 7 to this ordered list. Now there's a couple of different ways that I would quickly think about doing this from this video alone. So pause the video now and I'll give you a couple of seconds to give it a go. Alright, so the first solution that I could think about is simply by going the number 7 first and then number 3. Okay, so the first solution that we have here is you could simply append number 7 to the list, and as you know, the append method is gonna toss inside your list in the last index whatever you're passing here as a parameter, and then for the number 3 you would need to use the insert method. And as just a reminder, the insert method requests first the position, the index where you want to add your data. So I want to add number 3 to the index 3. And then lastly, let's just print it out. And as you can see, all the values are here inside. Also, another way for you to do this is simply by appending both values to the list, and after that sorting it with the sort method. And there we are. So I hope you're able to do it. That was it for today. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one.